Welcome everybody for one more program of Conciencia con Sabor. Muy buenas tardes a todos nuestros amigos radioescuchas. Bienvenidos una vez más a su programa Conciencia con Sabor. This evening we have honor to have our friend Toby Joseph. So it's my pleasure to have you here. Esta tarde tenemos a nuestro amigo Toby Joseph. Es un honor tenerlo aquí. Toby is from the tribe from the Mococho.
So I was born in Colorado. I'm Ute and Apache, specifically Tabagowachi Ute and Hickory Apache from the Four Corners area.
Okay, great. So he's from the Apaches?
Yeah.
Apaches tribe. But he's here for be talking us about a really amazing tradition who many people don't know. I would like to extend to the people this amazing knowledge of a strong tradition in the seawater, named the Canoa Journey. So who this year will be the main place will be this year with the Mococho tribe. We're welcoming many people from different tribes in this location. Entonces, Toby Joseph viene de la tribu de los Apaches y va a tratar de explicarnos esta tarde una enorme tradición que tienen las tribus, porque nuestro mar es sagrado también, y se llama el Canoa Journey. So thank you first for us to be here. We would love you to explain to our audience what is the Canoa Journey, what this means, and if you can explain a little bit about the elaboration. But you're free to talk.
Perfect. So always, where do you start, right? So like I said, I'm Toby Joseph, and I guess there's even people in the community that go, why am I speaking on Canoa Journey? Because I'm not from the Northwest. Well, Indian relocation brought my family here in 1974. And so we moved home, and then by 1976 we were back, and I've been here since. So I grew up here, and I can remember growing up and appreciate that communities like Puyallup, that the generous people have made place for others. That I often remind people that when they say that they were the generous people, it's not because they were generous with themselves. That from the day I got here until even examples I could use as of this morning, the Puyallup Nation being generous in a way that I need to talk about that for a minute. Because if you don't understand that, then there's some historical pieces that are why generosity gets trivialized. And so there's this place of generosity that for me came very early on in the welcoming of my family into this community, that I now look back and go, thank you to anyone from Ramona Bennett to Harvey Whitford, there's just this laundry list of community. That I say it that way because that's what Canoa Journey is about. And how do we build community and build a generous community that isn't an example of what colonization created, because Canoa Journey was illegal up until 1978, that when I got here to share, to come together culturally, to speak on indigenous matters, those spaces were, access was denied to our own community, and those were the frameworks of our communities. And so coming here, not being from here, ceremony and community being important, was grateful for things like the powwow that by 1978 were now legal and exploded. That I do want to point out to people that they'll hear my kids and my grandkids in the background, because it's hard to get me somewhere where I don't have family. That Canoa Journey is about that, bringing the little ones, the middle ones, the big ones, the old ones. That the very first Canoa Journey was in 1989, so about 11 years after it was legalized, because there were elders that, for them, this isn't what they did as a thing to show up on Alki Beach and go, hi, we're here for Westerners to sell ice cream and have festival. These pathways that go back, like in your land acknowledgement, to time immemorial, and communities using these waterways to connect. That I always appreciate Roger Jackson, who said originally Canoa Journey was every 4 years. It was a way for the communities to build up and then go and visit each other and do trade. That one elder, Elaine Grinnell, she said to me one day, because there was a conversation on Canoa Journey about all the Canoa Journey babies, and this elder that then, well, what do you think we went on Canoa Journey for? You sit in the village all winter long, and after a couple of seasons of harvesting and beating and having things that you've developed for trade, you can't wait to get out of the village and go, hey, and go see those people that ain't your cousins. Because protocol was important, and that was one of them. That in that same way, protocol is still important today. And so growing up, before I knew Canoe Journey, I knew community, I knew culture. Things that were, how do you show up in a good way? How do you show up and start with prayer, end with prayer? The Canoe Journey has become this all-encompassing process for the regional Coast Salish people to reclaim their own identity. The place I speak from is as a guest, as a visitor who's lived here pretty much my entire life at this point. And so some things that I've learned that I want to share that I think if people come, if they don't know about Canoe Journey, the very first one was in 1989 because there were 10 canoes that decided we're going to do this. Even if, we shouldn't be doing this, and this maritime festival that was going on that was this tall ships piece, that they decided to get in their canoes and, hey, it's legal. Let's test what those limits of sovereignty are. And as a sovereign nation, should we even need permission to travel our waterways when there's federal treaty rights that say this is a protected, preserved process? It's those things that literally they established for community. We're here, and we need a way to be here, be present. And elders that took those 10 canoes, and I was lucky enough because at the time I was in Seattle at the Thunderbird Indian Treatment Center, and they came in and like, hey, anybody want to go to the beach for the day? You have to fold tables and put chairs away and, put some work in. Okay, that's better than sitting in treatment. And at the time, I was trying to get out of treatment that way. And so I got to stand on the beach and see these canoes come in. And yay for people that fought for that moment, because there weren't enough moments to stand in community and go, look, there we are. Most of mine, at my age, I have memories of family hiding culture and songs in the basement, going out to places so remote that most people don't go to those spaces so that you wouldn't get heard, so that you weren't under penalty of law, persecuted, or worse.
And I have a question. So these people had some repression when they came with the canoes?
Well, from the establishment of Washington State, that oppression started with just colonization, and as it expanded to the limited 31 tribes that exist now, yay for those 10 canoes, because now there's over 100 canoes. Yeah. And so it is about liberation. It is about building sustainable communities. And so I raised my hands to the local community, and they've been grateful, like even to the Home Indian Center that is here in Tacoma, Washington, over on the Puyallup Reservation. They feed, on average, 600 people a month. It's community. And so when you go on Canoe Journey, a lot of times people go, well, there's so much free stuff. It's not about freedom in the context of free. It's about freedom in the context of, did you put your part in, and how are we redistributing wealth? How are we feeding the people? How are we putting canoes in the water that people can go and learn these teachings that are then, as an example, something I wanted to make sure that I talked about, and it would remind me, this paddle, this particular one was made by Micah McCarty, who is a local artist. He's been on tribal council at the Macaw Reservation. I've worked with him doing first foods that last year at the House of Intellect at the University of Washington with many canoe families and people there, because first foods is a part of Canoe Journey culture. Herbalism, how do we start to heal from this thing that is a longer conversation around food sovereignty? But I wanted to point out that Micah carved this paddle, and it was a gift there. And like I was telling you, we come up to the shore, and the first time I saw those canoes come in there at Alki, I had no clue what was going on. And as I asked questions and was included in, to find out that paddles up, it's a way of coming in a good way. And so you'll see the canoes as they come in, and people that come to see us on Canoe Journey, they'll get to see that the canoes will pull in, and they'll all hold their paddles up, they'll sing songs and ask for permission, ask for consent to come ashore. Imagine if settlers had come here with that level of consent. Imagine if there was that level of welcoming, whether at the shores here locally or at the borders, of people coming in a good way and people being more generous in how people connect. But it was in those moments I learned what coming in a good way meant, what it meant to be paddles up. And so this is a gift for you as a reminder. And then things that, if we're going to talk about Canoe Journey in this way, that very first one was a catalyst that instead of, like Roger had said, was every 4 years, people were hungry. And very quickly it became this renaissance, this cultural movement of the people to reclaim their very identity. And what needs to be understood is this is after years of oppression, genocide. According to census, we're about 2% of the population, and when you think of the millions of people that represents, we once represented that number, and now we're 2% of that population. And so for that population to still exist, to still be able to want to exert the very rights that not only are theirs as human beings, but under federal treaty law. And so yay for those elders that said, hey, you know what? Yay for this elder, Mr. Oliver, Emmett Oliver. That name, Emmett Oliver, is so important because there were elders like him that were like, we're going to do this. Doesn't matter if people said no. It didn't matter if people shouldn't do this because you might get in trouble. There's things that you should do because it should be done. And if you don't do them, nobody else might. So yay for these elders that took those 10 canoes, because for me, it started this piece that was, well, where's this going to be next year? Because they said, we're going to do this again somewhere. And then every year, looking to go all the way up until now, this year it'll be in Muckleshoot. And so canoes will travel, whether from Canada, Vancouver Island, around Macaw, from Quinault. They'll all go to Alki Beach, and from Alki to Muckleshoot, and be there for 6 days. Coming paddles up with permission and consent to come ashore. They'll be treated as guests. They'll be treated as honored, sacred guests in a cultural, ceremonial way. And yes, it'll be festivities. And yes, there'll be young people going, hey, because, we're human beings.
Yes, I want to teach for the next generations. What is a beautiful tradition, because I had the opportunity to be participating in some, so to be paddling. But you need to have a training to be paddling. It's no all the people got to be paddling. You need to be well trained. And so I would love if you can explain. I was talking a moment ago about how is the canoes in liberation, because I know the canoes are sacred.
Yeah, so absolutely. So as an example, after years of what were community efforts to build from those original 10 canoes to over 100 canoes, I've been very grateful to have been able to be part of a number of canoe families, including one that now for a number of years has been our canoe family. I have a nonprofit, Consultants for Indian Progress, and yay for local frameworks of fundraising and community effort. We have a 38-foot ocean-going canoe named Squideatad. It means somebody blessed with life, someone blessed with life. And so I'm always grateful because it's that language that is from this local area that the canoe holds a name of, that is also my grandson's name. And these reminders at the most intimate level to remember what is it to be blessed with life. Because as we hear in the background, sometimes life isn't as blessed. And whether it's sirens and whatever that might mean, when are those moments of emergency that we get to no longer have to be in that traumatic space? But why for me Canoe Journey is extra special, it's a peaceful space. It's a sacred space where people show up and just show up in a good way, but there's work. It's not like everybody, let's show up in kumbaya, or way-ah-hey, or whatever. Cold water training, like I was mentioning this Saturday, we'll be doing in a lot of communities that are going through cold water training, that are those communities learning, what do we do if we have to be in the water together? That people have died on Canoe Journey. Only a few, but enough to go, you know what? Too many. So we want to be safe. That means it's not just an event that is one day, or in this case, what ends up being weeks, even if the landing itself is 6 days. Weeks people are paddling to get there. And so it becomes this huge effort that throughout the year, how are we collecting the medicines that we need on journey? How are we supporting the building of the canoe, going out and interacting and harvesting opportunities and access issues that come out of that I've always been grateful, because on Canoe Journey, part of that work is connecting. And so over the years, people that I, locally, as an example, the director of the Puyallup Tribes Natural Resources Program and the chair of the Tahoma Indian Center Board, Jeffrey Thomas, has been for 30 years, 3 decades working towards policy and how do we move forward these access issues so that when people say, I need nettle or I need cedar, we can go out and harvest. That those of us that have been guests have places that locals can invite us into to share in ceremony, as has always been. That those same things exist around Washington State for citizens, but often people don't think of indigenous people. And so back to that work. A lot of times in our own community, we're working really hard for our own kids to go, I'm an Indian, and move away from, well, my grandma was Indian. If your grandma was Indian, guess what? So are you. We're working really hard to go, how do we educate away from blood quantums that is a federal system that's going, hey, we look at your people in a way that like dogs and cattle. Yeah, no, first you're 100%, then you're 50%, then you're 25%.
I don't think that's right. So I don't think it's correct.
No, absolutely, it's not just. And if we're looking at more than restorative justice and transformative justice, indigenous people have started to press because of that hard work and because of opportunities to consult and communicate while on journeys and build relationships to go, hey, Bob, remember we met on journeys, we're together? Yeah, no, I'm the chairman of this tribe, you're the chairman of that tribe, and how do we work together to do this thing that is hold a system accountable for our people? Because there's so many things that have been injustices that those conversations are being facilitated at a community level as well. And so yay for opportunities to go, what does it mean to come paddles up in a good way? Whether that's on Canoa Journey or every single day of the year, that is this deeper piece. How do we teach our young that part of that work, whether going, yeah, no, there's a reason we're going out to the river to do cold water training. I want you accustomed to cold water. So that shock of hitting cold water, if you have to in that emergency, isn't so traumatic that they freeze up and drown. Like trauma, how are we teaching them to navigate these things in ways that it becomes a year-long process? Canoa Journey isn't just about we got in the canoe in July and traveled and spent a few weeks together. It's no, we're building community the whole year. And so that work, it is very physical. That our kids go, hold on, why am I doing push-ups today? Because you don't want to be that guy who's going, man, my shoulders, my back really hurt paddling from Tulalip to Swinomish, Suquamish. And so some of these youth get in that canoe and they're literally paddling for a few weeks every day, hours every day. Yay for support boats where young people can get in and out, but then it means knowing how to transfer in and out of a support boat into the canoe, being comfortable enough and having confidence that that work is not just physical, but then mental, emotional, and spiritual.
I want to talk about the spiritual preparation because I know it's not just 1 year, it's many times, so long time. You was telling me more than 26 years of be paddling in the Canoa Journey and other previous years, so you have a lot of experience with this, which are a beautiful experience, but which are what is the preparation for the people who is going the Canoa Journey need to have spiritual and physical?
So I need to answer that 2 different ways. One is, as a visitor to this area, to go, it's different with every tribe. There are tribes who go, you want to go on the canoe and be in the canoe, you need to be participating in complete frameworks of journey that are, you showed up. You know, you have skin in the game. If you don't know how to paddle and be part of a team, then how do you expect to just jump in the canoe? And so there's some pieces there that are, for our kids, a lot of times every year, and why we go up to Huckleberry Camp, to Indian Heaven, because it's this process of going, not only are we picking huckleberries, but we're going to Sweat Lodge up there. We're going through ceremony. That it's a year-long framework that, like some people who prepare for a whole year to go to Sundance, there's people who prepare and go, wait, hold on, I've been on Canoa Journey for 10 years and still never been in the canoe. Because the opportunity for them to be part of that team, for whatever reason, it just turned out that they became skipper for ground crew. But I know elders who have never known how to swim, and so they don't get in the canoe. And so part of the work is making sure how do our youth know how to swim so they feel comfortable. And that in itself is part of that spiritual journey of identity, that you know how to swim, you become confident. The spirit goes, I can do this. But no different than Sweat Lodge. People go into Sweat Lodge and go, it's hot. It puts the body under stress. mentally, emotionally, physically. And as you tap into that spirituality, you learn to become resilient. All of a sudden you can sacrifice. And so I think a lot of the work is really tied to that. And then the other way I would answer that is personally. For me, it's why Indian Heaven is so important. It's that place I can go with my kids and my family and my grandkids and connect away from everything else, no city noises, and prepare so that we can get ready to come on Canoa Journey. That we typically will go back up to Indian Heaven end of August, right up into September, as a way going, hey, you know what, let's now come out of this space that was that spiritual journey, because we're about to go into winter. And that'll be stories and all these other things that are cultural protocols that, again, is part of that framework of the whole year. And then not necessarily going, I completed a year, but moved forward in part of that thing that is the cycle of life. And so that takes a lot of time. And so you don't really learn it going on your first journey. And so the preparation is different for everybody, because some people have been raised in a way that they go, I understand prayer. We start with prayer, we end with prayer. And then how do we then go, okay, so if that's the case and you know that, are you willing to step up and pray? Are you willing to step up and sing? And how do you invite, inspire, and educate young people, especially culturally, to want to step up? And for me, that's through developing mind, body, spirit, emotions, and developing resiliency. That's the other piece that personally, I don't know if I'd still be here if it weren't for Canoa Journey and that connection, because it developed those areas where I could go, mentally I'm strong, but I couldn't be mentally strong if I didn't have that spiritual foundation. That those things give an emotional content that I go, okay, now I'm not acting out and I'm not too much one way or the other. Over the years I've gotten more and more mature, that I don't get as angry as I once did, because there's spiritual maturity that it grows. And so a lot of times it's just getting people to show up, and then in community you see where people are. You've got to really say much, because you see how people show up. And that's really, to me, the biggest piece of that spiritual work, showing up. That Roger Jackson, and I'll always go back to him, he said once, and he talked about all these things that are Canoa Journey, and he says, and literally it was like, wait, hold on, all of that is Canoa Journey? And keeping this about spiritual, 15 minutes of what Canoa Journey is, and then, but before you come to any of that, you have to come to these things that are spiritual matters. Because if you're not strong of spirit, I promise you, when you're out on that canoe, your spirit's going to be challenged. If you haven't worked physically hard enough, you might cry when your muscles ache so hard and things get thrown around like shut up and paddle. That's a term.
Yes, sir.
Shut up and paddle. And I remember hearing that for the first time and hearing someone go, well, that's rude. No, hold on. If you don't do your part, you know what? One of my daughters once said, because part of cold water training is filling the canoe with enough water that then people jump out. And how do you make sure that the canoe doesn't, you ride it back up again? That they're hard to tip, but if they do, how do we get them right side? How do we bail them and get the water out and load everyone back up? And she's like, well, this is really simple and easy. Yeah, because we're on a lake or we're in a small stream. We were headed up to Campbell River, and this still goes to spiritual, because there was this moment where my daughter, after the event, was like, I think I growed up a little bit here, Dad. Because there was a moment where, in other canoes that had to be pulled out of the water, others that said, we're done today. Yay for the canoes that had young, strong people, both strong of mind, body, emotion, and spirit, because it was scary. The waves were big enough that they're coming over the top of the canoe, and the canoe's filling up as fast as we're bailing it. But everybody, because of that hard work put in, knew to go, don't stop bailing. You need to keep getting the water out. But more importantly, what they understood, don't stop paddling. You see, as the canoe is moving, there's this thing that happens that keeps it up. And you start to learn those things that are how we navigate in a canoe, that yay, when people are good enough to go, that's why I'm the skipper. That for me, I'd never felt and still don't. Yay for young men that have come up and owned, because they're from this community, that role of being skipper, that even if I've sat in that seat, I've never owned it. That even with as much experience, there's this thing to go, to be skippers, to be responsible for everyone on that canoe.
And then I remember I saw some, last year I saw some a group who was paddling, but the wind it was in the reverse. So they need to be working really hard for more than an hour.
Yeah. And as a skipper, don't get mad. How do you encourage your crew, your team? Like, and all of a sudden, wait, if you're a young man trying to become a skipper, and I know young men that have become skippers that are the best dads, the best husbands, the best community members, because they know what it means to be of service to themselves and to the people closest to them, to build relationships that in the heat of it, when people are hurting and tired and raw and going, yeah, no, I want to start cussing and I want to start being a bad way, you go, no, we're calling on Spirit. Let's sing a song that I always wanted to navigate time and stuff. Do we have time for a song?
Can we sing? Yeah.
So I always appreciate
it. It is beautiful, and this is part of the Canoa Journey too. We have here a friend who have a long time y estaba básicamente Toby explicando que él tiene muchos años en esta enorme tradición, que ha sido una pelea para que ellos puedan estar repitiendo esta tradición que básicamente de 70 hasta los 80 empezó con 10 personas que empezaron a navegar en el área de Seattle, donde estaba básicamente prohibido hacer esta navegación, que no estaban cumpliendo los tratados. Y bueno, básicamente estaba explicando qué significa y que hay también que tener una preparación espiritual y también física para hacer ese trabajo. Hay muchas personas que están en las tribus y que no han tenido la oportunidad de participar porque a veces no saben nadar y hay que ser muy fuertes físicamente y sobre todo espiritualmente, que es una preparación enorme. Entonces va a ser un canto que también es parte de esta enorme tradición por la que las tribus en este noroeste han luchado, y él se encuentra hablando para explicar a las personas que también son de la tribu, y algunos de ellos hablan español, que está muy agradecido con la tribu de lesbiana por su generosidad, y él está hablando del Canoa Journey porque él creció todos estos años en estas tierras y a las que él respeta mucho. Entonces, por favor.
Yeah, I can say gracias in the local language. Haichkas, thank you. And then thank you for these spaces that these things get to shared, because they don't get talked about enough, and not enough people know that. For me, the flute, and it was one of the things that my dad loved, that when we came here and went, oh, they got the flute here too, they got the drum here too. That all of a sudden, even if we're not from the same tribe, being tribal had connection. And so even if I'm from somewhere else, it was here that I learned how to play the flute. And grateful to people, Paul Cheochton Wagner, he's a storyteller that I got to grow up as a peer around, that always appreciative of the things shared. That's the other thing Canoa Journey does, it gives you a chance to share. So thanks for giving me a chance to then share what I've learned. So this particular flute's one that I got from my dad, that I'll share with you the sound of these three flutes and then share with you why that's important. So this would be the first one. And so this was the one that my dad, like said, helped me to fall in love with flute music and talked about love. That in those connections that are Canoa Journey, it's over the years that I go, wait, no, because I need to see my friends, whether, a friend of mine who's crossed over, Billy Conway, every year we'd get together and share stories, play the flute together, and then do that again in the next village and then in the next landing. And always there'd be people around, and then we'd tell stories that, so Billy didn't have any legs, and so we'd tell the story about Slapu, and at some point, whether I was telling the story or he was, or one of us was playing the flute or the drum, we would sit around and tell these stories. But it would always be fun because as Slapu, you come to understand, she eats bad children.
Oh, really?
Yep. And these kids are, no. And Billy goes, yeah, when I was a little kid, Slapu, well, obviously I escaped. but she got me, but I barely got away. And he would push out from the table, and kids that didn't know he was sitting there with no legs were like, oh my goodness, because now all of a sudden he's attributing no legs that he had lost in a different way to slapu. And always it would scare some of the kids, but he was really good about then folding story back in. And so this other flute is the one that I appreciate, because I think there was a level of, the first time I heard a drone flute, there's a sound to it that, like slapu, is eerie, that is haunting, and then almost magical. And so I'll play that. And so this particular flute always reminds me of Billy that if we're talking about Canoa Journey and protocol and sacredness, it's those relationships. The fact I've been on a bunch of journeys for me doesn't really matter. It's the relationships that have been built, whether that's on journeys or throughout the year connecting. That's why this other flute for me, and I brought them because these are 3 of the flutes that I've brought on Canoa Journey with me a lot. And so there's that connection. This one, a guy named Richard Mazza, who's actually he's married to a Cowlitz woman that's been around and played a role as an elder and part of the canoe family that my family's been part of for over a decade, that I almost couldn't talk about Canoa Journey without mentioning the Cowlitz. That there's a group of people, whether it was Devin and Cassie or Juanita, or like literally this laundry list of names, that relationship was formed. And then as this gentleman was getting older, he had made a number of flutes. At this point, this was flute number 151. So it's numbered as such, number 151. And yay that, for whatever reason, because I don't know if Richard will be with us we all cross over at some point. And so when I think of Canoa Journey and those relationships, especially those elders who are the most important relationships on those journeys, I couldn't play the flute on journeys and not think of those elders. And so this particular flute, that's why I want people to hear the sound of it, because especially there's this moment to go, even in the audience, and I want to take a minute that maybe you could say this, that the people there will think about their ancestors, call them into space to go, how do we all heal together? Because that's also what Canoa Journey is about. To me, that's what I learned and why it's important to be a human being in a good way like that. To every day show up, paddles up. And so our program, Paddles Up Family Strong, our Canoe Squideatud is about those connections. How do we in community find access? Access to culture, access to, thank you, great kid. Stay over, this moment. And that part, to be flexible, to go, just always takes a second, because kids are the priority, elders are the priority. And then once they're redirected, can go back to whatever the work is that needs to be done. And in this moment to go, how do we call those ancestors in? That I want to play this, and I'll add to it these words that my dad shared from his language. Awahatsago, Ayonishne. Awahatsago means I love you, and Awahatsago is as much as something can be, and Ayonishne is I love you. So as much as something can be, I love you, are the words to the song. But the intention is to call in those ancestors and remember to ask for their support. And the loved ones of those have crossed over, because those that are here, we need it. For the same reasons that oppression is real, for the same reasons that our people struggle, a lot of our people, black, brown, northern border, southern border, calling people into good space to be in a good way, paddles up. For me, that's what those words have come to mean from my dad and from years of being on Journey, sharing this song with friends, family, and young people. And so, I guess that's where I'll shut up and just play the song. So again, the words are Awahatsago Ayonishne. Yawa Hatsigo, Hayo Nishne, Hayo Nishne, Hayo Nishne, Hayo Nishne, Yawa Hatsigo, Hayo Nishne, Hayo Nishne, Hayo Nishne, Hayo Nishne. Very, very much. I love you. I love you. It's for me those kinds of things that I didn't pick up on any one journey, that I didn't get to be who I am at almost 55. It's all of it that are the journey that literally is every single day, and I don't mean to be overly some kind of way, but it's in those moments that I'm going, okay, you know what, I feel my dad, I feel my mom, I feel my grandma, I feel my grandpa. And even better, it's in those moments that I'm in the canoe that I go, I feel the strength of our community. So that whether I'm on the canoe or out of the canoe, when it's time to shut up and paddle, it's time to put work in. And then, yeah, because on Canoe Journey, people come and they'll go, because when it's time to eat, it's time to eat. When it's time to sleep, it's time to sleep. And then, yeah, because when it's time to play, and there's always so much time to play, there's always so much time to connect like that, and to laugh and to tell jokes and to even laugh at our own pain. To remember that uncle that passed, some years ago and go, remember that silly thing he used to do? That there was a person, since you got video, and I got to describe a little bit what I'm going to do, but I was on this journey and I was playing flute with this other guy, and as we were talking, how do you get people, because they always want to come, can I see your flute? That I don't mind, because like I said, one of my flutes has got it's pretty beat up. A couple of the flutes, I'm going, wait, hold on, this was made by, an elder who was in his 70s when he made it, who's in his late 80s now, and I'm going, yeah, I don't necessarily want everyone to touch this one. It's sacred that way for me. And so he's like, here's a way to do that, and nobody will ever come up and ask to play your flute again. And it's like, he goes, but you're going to have to work, like everything else. You're going to have to put some work in. Then I went, all right, hold on, what is he talking about? But once he did this thing, I understood, and no one has ever really wanted to play my flutes after that, except for the ones I don't do this with. This one I've done it with because, yeah, this is one that only I play. It's mine. But it's extra funny when people see you do this thing that is... and actually play a song with a flute from your nose. That for those that can't see it and are just listening, yeah, everything you're imagining, everything that you're envisioning of somebody putting a flute to their nose and then playing a song, yeah, you don't want to, you want to play my flute? Right?
No, this is beautiful because you're talking about like how we call our ancestors. So my culture is also like very big with Native origins too. So it's always important for us in the different cultures, like to be invoking our elders and how respect we are with our elders. So it is a thing who right now is being losing with the youth people. So we see how many people respectful with the elders or with the parents. So this is the community like hooking our elders to and showing respect for all generations, inclusive the youth. So what
absolutely.
So it's amazing moment, the Canoa Journey, to be like together singing songs, like to be a community, like you say, like but it is special to re-educate in our own culture and to be showing the different cultures for other people who many people don't know what this amazing and beautiful tradition in North USA, and it's from the original people.
Right? No, it's like going back home, being from the Four Corners area and going, I grew up here, so I don't speak Spanish, I don't speak Mexican, I didn't grow up there. And I wished I did, because when we talk about lost languages, as much as I appreciate being able to sing a few songs in traditional language, I know some words, it's as much, I've been separated because of Indian relocation. It was forced relocation. That when we talk oppression, culture, canoe, and for me at the most personal level, this is about liberation. To be free, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, in ways that are, I can sing these songs and go, here's where I got them from in a good way. And be able to share that with future generations. That someone once shared this with me, and I guess you make me think about this. Because the oppression, what we're trying to liberate from has been so ingrained that we've taken on ways of the oppressor. That so often we have to be careful how we navigate. And this elder who I looked at once and I go, wait, hold on, I'm giving respect to this elder. No. You need to know the difference between an elder and an old person. That when I learned that elders can come at any age, because it's an awareness to share, that even as an old person being in this way to go, yay for young elders, that whether young or old, immature, ignorant people cause harm. And so our young people have been faced with more oppression, more of these things that they're trying to figure out how to liberate from, and with less connection to that culture, less connection to have the resiliency to go, wait, hold on, in this moment, where's my flute? Or even just to be able to sit and, as an example, a group of youth that brought the warrior song to Canoa Journey, to community, that this, and I wanted, another song I'll just share with you real quick. It's the warrior song that, if we're going to call the ancestors, then how do we call for strength? That this song was created by youth, by young people who did listen, who then took what they heard and they owned it and said, this is our warrior song now that we're going to give to you old people because you need strength. The boarding schools did this thing to you that these young people didn't go through boarding school. It's like being Generation X and going, these young people, they don't know what it's like to be a latchkey kid or to drink from the hose or go, we'll take this outside. We don't call the cops. You want to throw hands, let's do that. That it is a level of toughness that, no, I know young people that are tough like that. And it was those tough young people, and I want to give a shout out to Oscar, Tecumseh, Deborah Saluskin, that whole family, because this warrior song, and without a drum here, I'll just sing the song, it goes like this. Whoa, hi-yo, whoa, hi-yo, whoa, hi-yo, whoa, hi-yo, whoa, hi-yo, hi-yo, whoa, hi-yo, hi-yo. That would be sung as a lead with 4 push-ups to follow it. And every member in the community sings that song and does a lead. That everyone has to be reminded that as a warrior, you have to take your place and lead. That elders, they are those leaders that over years have taken their place and led long enough to go, I got something to share, I got something to teach. And so I still struggle with whether I'm an elder or not. There's a few kids that see me that way. And then I hope I'm living in a way that, when you hear sirens like that, I know what to do. Because I was an EMT. And then what do you do when the waves are crashing over, they're 6 foot high, and you don't know what to do? And for an elder that said, you keep paddling. You keep moving forward. You remember the warrior song and you stay strong. You remember those ancestors and you stay strong. Because liberation, that's not work for weak people. And then the people that step to the forefront got to remember, they're there to defend all of those people who can't defend themselves. That from a place that is Standing Rock, because the canoes went to Standing Rock too. And if we're going to talk liberation, that is a piece that has to be spoken on, because at Standing Rock, go home and find your Standing Rock at home. And so many people that did. And why Canoa Journey will happen again this year, why elements of it happened even through COVID, that there were cultural connections and gatherings because people had to spiritually find strength so we didn't fall apart. And so all of a sudden this place that, if you don't know Canoa Journey, come and visit. It'll be in Muckleshoot. And then I'll go, at this, not that I'm old, but I forget a lot more without notes in front of me that, well, the camera thing threw me for a minute, so I left my, oh, well, I don't want to pull my phone up and go through all that with you, but let me give you this. Go to Facebook and pull up Muckleshoot Canoe Journey. You can go to www.muckleshoot.com or muckleshoottribe.com, and you'll be able to type in Canoe Journey 2023, and it'll give you directions, it'll give you protocol, give you information that if you want to go on journey, hey, bring a sleeping bag, bring water, well, these are the things you need to bring. Take experience of those who've come so many times before that are willing to be elders and share with you so you can be comfortable. Because like at Standing Rock, there was a discomfort, and I remember this soldier stepping up and go, I came here to defend something. But he was real clear he didn't come there to defend this woo-woo stuff. That what I've shared with you today is that woo-woo stuff that is about the spirit. That it's sad that soldiers don't understand this thing that warriors, I feel like in our community, are taught. This is about protecting the woo-woo, the women, the children, and their space to go, how do we be in a sacred way? Because those are the centerpieces of culture and community, vibrant community. That the places that I would say you could attach a most great peace to, those are the places where you see the equality of men and women practiced as a protocol, where people come together. And so, for me, it doesn't matter who we are, how are we liberating to that?
That is amazing, though. Thank you so much, Toby Joseph, for showing all this culture and to be showing it our audience. I'm sure they can came to the Canoa Journey. We will be with the Mocha Show this year. The landing is the
Muckleshoot. So Alki Beach is where the landing will be. Yes, Seattle.
Yes, the landing will be the 31st.
Yes.
The 31st in Alki Beach, so everybody is welcome. So please be respectful when you're coming with the canoes, with the people, because it's like a beautiful and amazing tradition that we trying to do all things with respect, a lot of respect, because it means too much for our kids and for our elders and for our youth people to be like fighting together in this. It is beautiful weather we have. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Haj Kasiem. Thank you, honorable
And
person.
I love you. You know too much.
You know I love you, Wendy.
So thank you so much for being with us, and hope you can to see you all for our next program. And please come to practice which day?
Yes, so this Saturday in Kent, that if you go to Facebook and look at Toby Joseph or go to tobyjoseph.com, the map and details will be there.
Okay, thank you so much, and I hope you can to come back the next program. Love you all.